It looks like we're live on YouTube. This is Male Entrepreneur. No. This is The Complete Man, episode number 3. And we're live in 3, 2. All right. Welcome back to The Complete Man podcast with your host, The Complete Man. I don't know. That just sounds weird to me right now. Maybe it's too early in the morning. I haven't had enough coffee. My maturity hasn't kicked in. But the complete man himself, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how are you doing, man?
Nathan, I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks always for the amazing intro.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be back on the podcast with you. And we record these episodes a little bit in advance, and you wanted to talk about something today, and I'm tiny bit afraid that it won't be relevant by the time that it comes out, but I don't know. It seems like it might be an evergreen issue, so I'd like to get into a recent current event that might not be so recent by the time people are actually hearing this.
Mm-hmm. So it may not be as hot as a topic as it is as we're recording this, but it's definitely going to be relevant because it's not just one occurrence, right? This kind of stuff happens all the time. We've just seen it happen with a celebrity now in front of millions and millions of people, which was unexpected. But we're going to be talking about the Will Smith incident, you can say, and not necessarily, I don't want to make a big hype about it because we all make mistakes. That's just the reality of life. And I think not that media is blowing it out of proportion, because when someone like a celebrity does that, that's common. That's what they're going to do because they have nothing better to do. But I think it's relevant because there's a lot of people that were shocked, that were confused, that were disappointed. I'm a huge Will Smith fan. I always have been, and I'm sure you are too, Nathan, right? Back from the Bel Air days. But I think he's just an amazing person overall, has got some great character, but he's been challenged. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today.
Yeah, and I want to preface it with I have always been a big Will Smith fan, and I don't always agree with everything that I see him do or say, and you should never expect to always agree with somebody on every single issue, but especially when it comes to like his thoughts on motivation, his thoughts on self-development, a lot of the things that I've seen him say on his TikTok or his Instagram channel. I have always been a big fan of Will Smith, and when the whole incident happened, my immediate thought was, we all make mistakes. We all, especially under emotionally sensitive issues, emotions, when we act strictly on emotions, a lot of times we end up making some mistakes, and he without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah, exactly. And it's understandable. I think a lot of us have felt moments in our life where we've had extreme anger, and he was probably confused himself. And I think some said he might have even been under a little bit of influence of alcohol, maybe celebrating, who knows, right? And all of these things have a factor to play. But let's break it down, because I've also seen mixed reviews on this whole incident. I've heard people talk about, oh, it was something that was set up. It was something that was just a hoax. I personally don't think so. I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But if you take a look at Chris Rock's reaction, I think that was pretty genuine, and Will Smith's reaction. So let's just go off the thought that what happened actually did happen.
Yeah. Well, just before that, I can get where people's skepticism, I mean, the TV lies to us so often. I can see why people would be skeptical and be like, oh, this is just a ratings booster hoax or whatever the case may be. But I tend to side with you. It seemed like it was a pretty real, especially from Chris Rock's point of view, it seemed like it was a pretty real response. But I'm willing to respect. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the heads of either person. I'm willing to respect that other people might have a different opinion about it, but I kind of fall in the same lines with you. It seemed like it was a pretty real, raw, emotional situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially since it seems like now, again, I don't know what the reports are, whether they're accurate or not, but his career is going to be impacted, right? He's jeopardized his career and his reputation. And I think that's been a challenge, or that's going to be a challenge for him, because he's had this amazing reputation, and all of a sudden for someone to come, let's just say potentially to the end of their career, and this happen. Um, Not that he was at the end of his career, but this could very much end his career. And we'll see what ends up happening. But there's another guy that really reminds me of something similar. Is it Nicolas Cage that was in Con Air? That was
Yep.
in, yeah. See, I loved him as an actor as well. Like I thought he was amazing. I actually met him, but he went downhill as well, and his career never caught back up to him. Like he's doing all these low budget films now, and he hasn't gotten to that same level of, you can say, prestige or being considered an A actor. I think he's more in the C category now. So I think Will Smith is maybe, perhaps may fall into that same category. But forget about the results. I wish him the very best. I hope that things go very well for him. But let's talk about what actually happened. Why would someone just get up on stage and just slap someone else, a guy, right? That is a very raw emotion. And what I'd also like to talk about is his speech as well after, how he believed, I think at that point, that he was defending his family, because he said he got the Oscar based on, I haven't seen the movie yet, but based on a character, a real character apparently, who was a fierce defender of his family. I believe those were the words that he used, and I believe he believed at that point that he was defending his wife, and that's what a guy does when he defends his wife. And Nathan, I want to get your thoughts on that.
I it's hard for me to judge the situation just because I'm not perfect, and I can't say that I'm not guilty of some of the things that I make judgments about others for. Uh, I know that from celebrity gossip or whatever, I don't think I would have stuck with his wife. I know that they have kids together, but his wife has cheated on him and openly bragged about the reason she cheated on him is because Will Smith couldn't make her happy, and all of that is like standing around the water tank getting, giving and receiving gossip. So that doesn't really, I don't know. Talking about that stuff isn't usually like what I try to get involved with. I'm 100% though. My dad always taught us if somebody steps on your toes, you break their ankles and they'll never step on your toes again. And my dad was also a very fierce, like, if anybody talks crap about your family, you don't slap them, you knock them out. And so, I mean, I feel it from both ways. But I kind of feel like I'm going to sound like a total misogynist, but we always give men the blame for war and conflict. But it's been my experience, men don't usually like to fight. I mean, we're the ones that get punched. We're the ones that get our teeth knocked out. We're not really super excited to fight. But a lot of times our girlfriends or our wives are like, are you going to let him talk to me like that? And so I think that was a situation like that. A lot of wars, I think, in history are like, are you really going to let him invade our borders? Oh, you're not the man I thought you were when we got married. So I think that might have been a bit of in play when that situation happened. I think that if it was a roasting, and comedians are supposed to roast the celebrities, and that's part of Chris Rock's job, is to get up there and make fun of the audience. And one person in the audience thought that they were above being roasted. And so I think that she was like, yo, you're not going to let him talk to me like that, are you? And I think that's what kind of sparked the whole thing. I think that if Jada hadn't had that type of reaction to it, I think Will Smith would have, if she just laughed like most celebrities do when they get roasted, Will Smith would have just laughed, and I don't think it would have even been an incident. That's my very misogynistic take on it, though.
Well, I think there's some accuracy to that. So let's take a look at it from the perspective of, we're going to make some assumptions here, right? Because in any situation, we have to make assumptions based on the information that we have. So let's just assume that is the case, that she did have extramarital affairs, and whatever the issue was, whether it was justified or not justified, it's had an impact on Will Smith, and it's had an impact on the relationship. And I'm assuming it has had an impact on the kids as well. So first of all, they need to deal with that issue. That's the bigger challenge here. We'll get deeper into that, because I believe that he needs to stand up for himself, because right now he is nowhere near being a complete man.
Hmm.
He's the complete opposite. So let's just say, for example, that okay, she's cheated on him. They're struggling. And if you take a look at the one thing I saw was a different angle of the situation, where she actually did initially laugh and then rolled her eyes and then laughed. And he was originally laughing too. And then something triggered him and set him off. So that's the first thing we need to identify, is what is the trigger. I don't necessarily think it was her. I think it was his own internal being, because studies have actually shown now with neuroscience that majority of our reactions are not necessarily based on the external stimuli. This is really interesting. It's already a system of how we think already. So our brain is prepped and triggered to react a certain way based on stimuli. And two people could be exposed to the same stimuli and react completely differently. That is a difference, right? So where was Will Smith's brain? Where was his state of mind when he got triggered? That is the bigger thing. And so for us guys, we need to understand this, is because what is our brain state? What have we conditioned our brain to do? Because all it takes is a moment of something to trigger us. And it's not necessarily the event, because it could have been Will Smith in a very happy marriage with no adultery, and he may not, I'm assuming, and I'm going to make that assumption, that he wouldn't have reacted the same way. He probably would have just continued to laugh it off. I don't think it really has anything to do with a medical condition, although I think that has a small part to play, but I don't think it was a factor for him to get up and actually slap Chris Rock. It was his anger, I believe, again, my perception of the stuff that's been happening in their relationship, that he's taking out on another man, because he's not being man enough to stand up in his own relationship to say, this is wrong. This is whatever's happened. I'm hurt. And, they need to figure that out. I'm not in any position to say he should leave her. He should stay with her. I'm a strong believer of marriage. I'm a strong believer of being committed. I'm a strong believer that people make mistakes. I'm a strong believer that people cheat for a reason. And that reason typically is, there's two. A, there's something missing within themselves, or there's something not, or B, they're not getting something from the relationship. Not that it's right, but that's typically why people cheat.
Hmm.
And so it's a good lesson for us as guys, because I've seen men out there say, well, just get up. That was a good thing. And women too. Yeah, he should have slapped him. Chris Rock had nothing to do with him. Absolutely. He was just like a innocent bystander. You're absolutely right, because he just cracks jokes. That's just what his job is. Imagine, I think someone said, imagine what Ricky Gervais would have been like had he been up there and made fun of her. Like, it would have been 100 times worse, right?
I I think it also matters the context. I mean, if you're at the nightclub and some dude just randomly walks up and starts making fun of your wife's hair, that's a little bit different than when you're at an awards ceremony and a comedian is paid to be up front and make fun of the people in the audience. So I could totally see it and accept it as justified if it was in a different context, but in the context it was in, it did seem a little bit reactionary and a bit of an over response to me.
Absolutely. And again, that goes back to what have we conditioned our mind to do when we come up with these tough situations, right? And applies very much to entrepreneurship as well. You can put two guys who are entrepreneurs in business, and you can give them the same challenge, whether it's an economic challenge or a staff challenge or a customer challenge, and they will react differently because they've conditioned themselves differently. The other thing here is yeah, we also do need to be sensitive to her medical condition, right? Someone made fun of her. If he knew that she had a medical condition or not, whatever, she's obviously dealing with it. It's a challenge, especially for men. Like, I've lost my hair. I know how much of a challenge it was for me when I started losing my hair in my 20s. I was like, shoot, like this is not fun, right? It was the old Seinfeld episode, pretty much, where I shaved my head and then tried to grow it back, and it was like, holy crap, where did the patchiness come from? Um, so I understand that for a woman to go through that challenge, and I have a couple of women in my life that I know are dealing with the same challenge. I know how much they struggle with it. So it's hard. So I think we also do need to be sensitive of that issue. But again, coming back to this core concept, the question now is, I think for the broad media or for the broad general public, what lesson has this taught us? I think that is the bigger question here as society. What lesson has this taught us? And I'll just quickly talk about it from my perspective. Um, we know that celebrities are not above any other human being in terms of they are not God, right? Just because he got an Oscar doesn't mean he doesn't have problems, right? People always look at celebrities and say they got so much money, they were going to these award ceremonies and doing all these kinds of things, and they have an amazing life. I can bet you anything, and I have a gut feeling about this, that what Will Smith has gone through, or his life that he has, although he has all the material things, I bet you he's struggling more than the average person right now
Yeah.
because of his internal challenges. I've seen, Nathan, have you seen? You obviously watched his posts. You saw what he's been talking about. He's also been trying to get down a path of more spiritual learnings and teachings as well. You can tell over the last few years he's been struggling with something. He's been struggling with trying to find some kind of fulfillment in life or purpose in life.
Hmm.
Have you seen the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of the times when I'm creating content around this stuff, it's because it's what's going on in my life. I'm trying to figure out how to overcome this hurdle, and I'm trying to share that journey with people around me. It seems like he's definitely been doing that as well. And again, that's why I was not quick to cast judgment on him or jump onto the bandwagon of attacking him. And I just want to add this. While I don't agree with the way he handled the situation, I don't agree with society's response to it either. The let's cancel Will Smith, let's take away his Oscar, all of that. It's like, dude, this guy's hurting, and he deserves, like all human beings when they're hurting, he deserves a little bit of empathy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so this is kind of that's a really interesting perspective that you have, Nathan, because I agree with you. I think it is important to give people empathy and compassion. That's the one thing that we haven't really been using in the world over the last couple of years is compassion for each other, right? It's just been more at odds. We all make mistakes. On the flip side as well, I'm very, it's people go through challenges, and we've all seen that. And I've gone through many challenges. My dad went through many challenges. I saw the struggles that he faced. And I just remember how he always forgave people, regardless of the mistakes that they made. And I think a core part of that was because he himself had made so many mistakes. And he used to tell us nobody is perfect, and you gotta just kind of allow people to be able to move on with their lives and do their own thing, and be compassionate about that. So I always take that to heart. On the flip side, I'm always like, we as men, we talk about this, the fragile state that men are in already, right, as leaders. And so now we see this guy go up, and I'm gonna excuse my language, bitch slap someone. I don't think that's very masculine at all. I think that's the complete opposite, right? I think he should have stood up for himself in his marriage, not just took it out on someone else, as I mentioned before. So now, what kind of leadership example has that given? Because his son, apparently, again, haven't seen it, right, tweeted out, "That's how we do it," right? In response, saying, I'm assuming that that's how our family rolls when someone disses us or whatever. And I don't agree with it. Now it's sending this message to not only a younger generation, but our generation, that it's okay to go out there and just slap someone if you get insulted. Not that, and I think there's, here's what I want to explain there. I think there's a time and a place, just like you said, Nathan. Right? You go to a bar, someone insults your wife, grabs her ass. Yeah, knock him out. If your wife is distraught, like if your wife just brushes it off and says screw it, forget about it, yeah. But if you could tell that she's been really hurt by it, women have been assaulted, we know that tons of women get assaulted, and it's long lasting, right? It's not like it's something that they can just forget about. They might actually think about it for years, that someone's grabbed their butt in a club and not forgotten about it. And
Mhm.
sometimes those men need to be taught a lesson. You don't have to go out there and, from my perspective, again, I don't think you need to go out there and strike them right away, but maybe you can poke and prod a little bit and say, hey, Jay off, or whatever you want to call him. You might want to keep your hands to yourself. Come up with a cheeky joke like Chris Rock has done, and see what ends up happening. As long as you can hold your own, right? If you're 4 feet tall and you're going up against that's a guy that's 6'8", got 150 pounds on you, you got to be smart. You got to be smart to walk away as well when the time calls for it.
I think it's a nuanced issue, and it deserves some reflection. Not
Mm.
just his instant, but just how we act as men in society in general. Um, I'm not sure I know exactly what the answer is. And again, I think it also depends on the context of the situation. But my overall thoughts of it are, for this particular instance, I, I'm just trying to have empathy for both guys in the situation. And I do think that Will Smith handled it inappropriately. But again, I also think the way that Hollywood has reacted in response has also been a disproportionate response and an inappropriate response.
What words of wisdom there, Nathan. I
Ah,
love it. And I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up this episode, because that's important. If we talk about, okay, what are we talking about here? Core aspects, as Nathan talked about, you gotta understand the situation that you're in, right? And that's mindfulness, right? Taking time to pause before you actually react. Again, that is taking count what your state is in, what the environment is, and what the potential outcome could be. I think you have to play that out in your head. Again, that's where mindfulness comes in. Be present. Also understand your triggers and how you respond to certain triggers, right? Because it's not necessarily the environment, it can be the trigger. And everything is situational, meaning you may respond one way in one situation, a completely different way in a different situation. Understand that, because a lot of times we as guys are taught that we need to be consistent in every single situation. And I'm not on board with that, because you need to be able to adapt and be versatile in every single situation. You can still have the same values, but react differently. And so that's kind of my 2 cents at the end of the day when it comes to this situation.
and handle your home business at home and don't take it out on other people.
Yeah, especially in front of millions and millions of people.
There you go. All right, Pradeep, this has been a fantastic episode of the Complete Man podcast. Where's the best place that people can go if they want to get more episodes?
Check out YouTubeformen.com or CompleteManPodcast.com.
All right, and until next time, we will catch you later.
Till next time.